1989 Nissan Escargot. Oh, I see, it's a cargo van shaped like a snail, and they named it the Escargot. The fact that this rolling punchline actually made it into production is proof that, despite Japan's incredible innovations by the late 1980s, they hadn't quite mastered the art of humor. The Escargot was supposedly a tribute to the Citroën to CV, but in reality, the two vehicles are about as alike as Diego Velázquez's Christ Crucified is to Andrés Serrano's Piss Christ. If only Nissan had waited for Photoshop to be invented before bringing this idea to life, it could have been a brilliant April Fool's joke, and we all could have moved on with our lives after 24 hours. Instead, the Escargot remains a bizarre footnote in automotive history, a quirky reminder that not every creative idea deserves to hit the road. 1987 Nissan Pulsar. The Nissan Pulsar NX's standout feature was its interchangeable rear hatches, allowing it to switch between an awkward-looking hatchback and a clumsy half-wagon. However, this gimmick appealed to almost no one. While good driving dynamics could have saved it, the Pulsar NX was based on the mundane Nissan Sentra, making it about as exciting as a new higher orientation at Staples. Its lackluster performance and odd design left it as a forgettable footnote in automotive history. 1985 Subaru XT. The Subaru XT Coupe, a product of the 1980s, proved that even Japanese automakers known for their success during that era could stumble. With its angular, straight-edge design, the XT looked less like a car and more like a doorstop, missing the mark as an 80s design classic. The interior was even stranger, featuring an LCD dashboard reminiscent of a cheap video game, an awkward sideways L-shaped steering wheel, and an uncomfortably phallic shift lever. Despite its turbocharged engine, it produced an underwhelming 111 horsepower, making its turbo boost feel more like a gentle breeze than a performance enhancer. Subaru did offer a 4x4 version with their springs for adjustable ride height, which was a neat feature, but it couldn't save the XT from its overall lack of appeal. While it had some innovative elements, the XT remains a quirky and largely forgettable chapter in Subaru's history. 1980 for Zimmer Quicksilver. Zimmer's Quicksilver is a prime example of neoclassic cars taking a functional vehicle and ruining it with tacky, old-fashioned styling. Based on a Pontiac Fiero, the Quicksilver featured a stretched wheelbase and a massive, empty front end, despite being powered by a mediocre V6 engine located behind the passenger compartment. It retained the Fiero's pop-up headlights and added a giant chrome bumper, creating a garish, mismatched design. Despite its absurdity, Zimmer sold the Quicksilver for around $50,000, the same price as a luxury Mercedes 500 sell at the time. The Quicksilver serves as a cautionary tale of style over substance, proving that not every automotive idea deserves to see the light of day. 1984 Ford Tempo. The Ford Tempo was Ford's first attempt at a sleek, aerodynamic design in North America, featuring European-style flush-mounted headlights. However, due to delays, the 1983 launch model had to use outdated square-sealed beam headlights in chrome buckets. By 1986, the promised modern headlights were finally added, but in 1988, Ford redesigned the sedan with a boxy, unattractive rear end, ruining its aesthetic progress. The Tempo Coupe, on the other hand, evolved into a decent-looking car, but its appearance couldn't compensate for its poor performance. The engine was a crude adaptation of a 1960s straight six, and the suspension was cheaply engineered. Despite its design improvements, the Tempo ultimately fell short due to its lackluster mechanics. 1983 Glenfrome Facet. The Glenfrome Facet is a vehicle that defies explanation. It looks like a bizarre mashup of a Lamborghini LM002, an AMC Gremlin, a congenital skin condition, and an industrial accident. Glenfrome, a British company known for customizing Range Rovers for wealthy Middle Eastern clients, claimed there was a Range Rover underneath the Facet's tortured sheet metal, but it's hard to believe. Designed by Dennis Adams, the same mind behind Marcos Engineering's equally questionable creations, the Facet featured a removable targa top that could be hydraulically lifted and stored under the hood. Glenfro marketed the Facet as a go-anywhere sport coupe, pricing it at a staggering £55,000. The Facet serves as a reminder of the old saying about fools and their money. It's a strange, almost surreal footnote in automotive history, proving that even the most outlandish designs can find a beer if the price is high enough. 1981 AMC Eagle Camback. The AMC Eagle Camback, often compared to a redneck's DIY project a gremlin turned into a 4x4, was actually a factory-built oddity. In the late 1970s, AMC, struggling with outdated models and financial woes, leveraged its Jeep division's 4x4 expertise to create the Eagle line. While the Hornet, Concorde-based wagon was a hit and the sedan somewhat sensible, the Gremlin, Spirit-based Camback pushed the concept too far. The wagon's success hinted at the future crossover trend, but the Camback sold just 5,603 units. AMC's brochures notably avoided showing its rear, likely to hide its Gremlin on stilts appearance. Though quirky and largely unsuccessful, the Camback remains a fascinating footnote in automotive history, showcasing AMC's creative if flawed ambitions. It remains a quirky, if not entirely successful, chapter in automotive history. 1980 Toyota Corolla Tercel. The Toyota Tercel marked a significant milestone as Toyota's first transverse-engine, front-wheel drive car. However, its design left many scratching their heads, particularly its awkwardly truncated rear end. It's hard to imagine what led to this peculiar styling choice. One theory is that the engineers asked the designers to highlight the compactness of the powertrain but forgot to specify which end of the car housed the engine. Another possibility is a last-minute typo in the specifications, forcing the designers to chop 10 inches off the car just before final approval. Whatever the reason, the result was a Tercel that looked even flimsier and more budget-conscious than it needed to be. The Tercel's tinny, cheap appearance didn't do it any favors, but it somehow managed to carve out a place in automotive history. While its design may have been questionable, it remains a curious footnote in Toyota's evolution as a carmaker. 1980 Fiat Panda. Fiat intended the Panda to be a no-frills, back-to-basics economy car, but it seems they took the concept to an extreme. The straight-edged sheet metal, unpainted bumpers, and flat glass gave the Panda an austerity usually reserved for the most utilitarian of vehicles, something you might expect in a prison cafeteria rather than a consumer car. Inside, the Panda's dashboard looked like an afterthought. It featured a bare, cloth-covered shelf with a small box housing the speedometer and heater controls, seemingly glued haphazardly in front of the steering wheel. The seats were as thin as pizza boxes and only marginally more comfortable. The overall ambience of the Panda was closer to that of a forklift minus the comfort or performance. Despite its lack of charm, Fiat kept the Panda in production for an astonishing 23 years. It's a testament to the idea that sometimes practicality or perhaps sheer stubbornness can outweigh aesthetics and comfort. The Panda may not have been pretty or luxurious, but it certainly left its mark as one of the most bare-bones cars ever made. 1980 Ferrari Mondial. Anyone who claims there's no such thing as an unattractive Ferrari has clearly never seen the Mondial. While most Ferraris are sleek, sexy, and designed to turn heads, the Mondial is long, awkward, and visually jarring. Its unflattering shape is the predictable outcome of trying to cram a backseat, a mid-engine layout, and a transversely mounted V8 into one car. But the Mondial's awkward proportions aren't even its worst offense, it's that cringeworthy downward-sloping nose, complete with what looks like Venetian blinds stretched across its width. It's hard to imagine how this design made it off the drawing board, while there's no concrete evidence. It's easy to imagine the Mondial was the result of a bet at Pininfarina. 100,000 lire says, I can design a Ferrari that guarantees its owner stays single, whether or not that's true. The Mondial remains a rare misstep in Ferrari's otherwise storied history of stunning automotive design. 1980 Excalibur Series 4. Excalibur Motors began its journey when Brooks Stevens designed the dubiously named Studebaker SS, an early retro-style car inspired by the Mercedes-Benz SSK. In 1963, Stevens founded his own company to continue crafting similar vehicles, and to be fair, the early models weren't as bad as they could have been. However, things took a turn in 1980 when Excalibur decided it was time for a major redesign. The result was the Excalibur Series 4, a car that shocked the public with its bizarre styling. Featuring a split windshield, a squared-off rear window, and faux-wire wheels, the Series 4 looked like a pimpmobile that had undergone a budget-friendly and ultimately botched makeover. Thankfully, Excalibur went bankrupt in 1986, but the company's story didn't end there. It was revived 3 times between 1987 and 2003, each attempt failing to recapture the magic or avoid the missteps of its earlier years. Finally, Excalibur Motors faded away for good, leaving behind a legacy of eccentric designs and questionable choices. 1980 Chevrolet Citation. The GM cars, particularly the Chevrolet Citation, have been widely criticized for their poor engineering and execution, but their appearance often escapes the ridicule it truly deserves. The Citation was intended to mimic sleek European hatchbacks, but it ended up as a distinctly American interpretation, bulky, uninspired, and unapologetically so. There's something about the Citation's posture, the way it slumps over its undersized wheels, that paints a vivid picture. It's the kind of car that feels like it would spend its days lounging on a couch, binge-watching Jerry Springer, snacking on sour cream and onion chips, and avoiding any form of productivity. That is, if it weren't constantly breaking down and being hauled back to the dealership for warranty repairs. It's baffling how buyers in the 1980s looked at the Citation and didn't immediately sense the misery it would bring. From its lazy design to its unreliable performance, the Citation stands as a stark reminder of an era when ambition often outpaced execution. 1980 Cadillac Seville. The bustleback Cadillac Seville remains a mystery in terms of its design inspiration, but one thing is clear: whoever approved it likely didn't take a good look at the rear. Some speculate its droopy rear end was influenced by the Daimler DS Ford Limousine, a vehicle favored by royalty worldwide. If true, it's a perfect example of the old Billy Joel lyric, "You can't dress trashy till you spend a lot of money." The Seville's flaws weren't just skin deep. Under the hood, it housed some of General Motors' most notorious engines, including the underwhelming 4.1-liter V8, the infamous Oldsmobile diesel, and the disastrous V8 6-4 engine. Despite its mechanical shortcomings and polarizing design, the Seville managed to maintain steady sales throughout its 6-year production run. It's a testament to the fact that even the most questionable designs can find an audience. Thanks for watching. We've explored some of the ugliest cars of the 1980s, and while opinions may vary, these designs definitely made an impact. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more content. Let us know your pick for the ugliest 80s car in the comments below. Until next time, stay safe and stylish.